All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Calderon. Thanks for joining. We just thought we'd start just a quick introduction and a little background on ourselves. My name is Gary Calderon. I've been in the music publishing industry for many years. I joined RyteBox about 3 years ago as sort of a consultant, business analyst role. My background came in the music publishing space, worked at EMI, Zamba, BMG, Universal, Warner Chappell, pretty much ran the whole circle of the majors, and left the music industry for a couple of years, and then joined up with RyteBox 3 years ago. And yeah, just really happy to kind of give you a little intro, hopefully answer some questions for you guys, give you a little peek into the system, and hopefully have some demos set up in the future if you'd like to see more. So I'll turn it over to Reagan.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, I'm Reagan Milo. I'm the Chief Product Officer for RyteBox. I've been with the organization since the beginning, and I've been working on delivering product solutions for both publishing and recorded music for about 18 years now. We're really excited to share more about RyteBox with you. Just high level, RyteBox is a global unified rights and royalties solution for both publishing and recorded music, and it's all in one place so that you have it all together. You can manage them together and view and report on everything all together in the same instance. RyteBox is modeled after contracts. It's a contract-based solution. It's modeled after real-world contracts. So what does that mean? It means that in RyteBox, when you set up a contract, it can have contract periods and delivery commitments, and it can support the notion of having different rights and rates for different sets of assets. So, for example, if you have a Schedule A with some for old songs, and maybe you've been granted admin rights for those, and all new works, you've been granted co-pub rights, and maybe you have different rates. RyteBox supports that on the contracts with a concept called provisions, and that's something good to keep track of because we'll be talking more about provisions later. RyteBox also provides the ability to support contract extensions and amendments, and it's contract driven, which means that as you deliver assets to your contracts, those rights and rates that you defined on them will be inherited on those assets. And I'll hand it over to Gary to give a quick tour of RyteBox.
Yeah, just on that, just one thing to add as well. One of the nice features with RyteBox is that if you sign an agreement, for example, that has both publishing rights and master rights, that can all be set up because if it's under one contract, it can be set up as one contract within RyteBox. And this is what Reagan was referring to as provisions. So you can have provisions for publishing rights and you can have provisions for master rights. So with that, I am going to share my screen and hopefully everyone can see. Okay, good. I got a couple of thumbs up. Nice. Okay, so just as an overview, this is RyteBox. We've set up this sort of fictitious company called Acme, very generic. And then over here, you'll see on the left toolbar, these are the main modules that are part of the system. So we have a contract management system, we have a catalog management system, we have contacts, which is basically where you will store all of the parties that are involved in your agreements, your writers, attorneys, managers, your societies, sub-publishers, perhaps, right? Everything would be stored there. We have a delivery module. This is where you have the ability to deliver your assets to third parties, whether it's for a CWR registration or a catalog shipment. That can all be done through this module here. Then we've got our revenue module. This is where you'll process all of your inbound receipts for revenue and do all your matching and mapping and things like that. And then your accounting module, this is where you will have your ledgers. So you'll have a royalty ledger, which is where you can see all your analytics on your company-wide basis. You can then filter it for particular clients or particular accounting groups. We'll get to that in a little bit. And it also, on this module, you'll find your royalty account ledger. This is where your actual payees or clients will be found, where you'll be able to see what their financials look like, where their royalty statements will be generated, etc. So that's just an overview of the system there. And then on here, we've got this notion of a dashboard. So this we're looking right now at the contract module. We have this sort of 30,000 foot view of what's going on your portfolio for your contracts. And I won't take you through all the widgets, but it's just things like, newly entered contracts. There's a whole tracking thing for deals that are coming up for termination, or so to help you manage your workflow. We've got reminders here. So again, we'll touch on a few of these things as we move along. And then we have this contract list, and this is literally just a list of all the contracts that are in your system. One of the things that you'll see on many of the screens throughout the system is that we have this ability to export. And this is where you can take anything in the system, export it out to, for example, a CSV file if you wanted to do further analytics. Additionally, you've got all sorts of filtering options. And what you can do here is you can customize the columns that you're seeing. So we absorb a lot of data, right? From whether it's from contracts, assets, and things. And what we like to do is to be able to have everyone visualize all of that on these lists. But there's also going to be definitely columns and things that you might want to have more prevalent, others that you might not need. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to customize the system for you. All right, so that's just a high level view of our system. So now we are going to jump into the topic for today's webinar, which is from chaos to clarity. So pretty self-explanatory, right? But one of the things we wanted to sort of touch on is that, music industry has gotten incredibly complex. It continues to get more difficult as we move forward, right? And RyteBox is designed to keep up with all of those changes in the industry. One of the things that we wanted to focus on is some of the real pain points that you struggle with, right? Whether it's through reporting or just monitoring workflow, things like that. So we came up with some chaos items, as we like to call it. And we're going to hopefully take you through some things that will hopefully resonate with a lot of you. Like, yep, these are some real challenges that we have. And then we'll take you hopefully to the clarity of how RyteBox can help you manage a lot of this craziness that's going on in our world.
Thanks, Gary. I get a lot of urgent requests for deal and catalog level financial reporting, and it's always time consuming and difficult to process. Can you talk about how you'd solve for that?
Sure. Yeah. This is one of the things that in all my years in publishing, I found was probably the most challenging, right? The amount of data obviously has gone through the roof. And then to somehow manage all that data and create reports from that data is really challenging, right? Especially nowadays, I'm not sure if this impacts a lot of the people on our call today, but we've got publishers that are doing administration rights for outside companies. They're doing administration for funds that have gone out and acquired assets, right? What I found both from an internal and an external perspective is that the number of people and requests that are flying at you to give them analytics on deals, on songs, on income types, things like that. So all of that is really challenging and something that we're working really hard in RyteBox to make as easy as possible for everybody. So one of the things that's great about RyteBox just on a high level is that in many systems, you have this concept of having to run closes to then have financials updated, right? RyteBox works in a way in that as a statement is processed, the posting of that income to songs and then down the line to the clients happens automatically. So there's no need to say, okay, pencils down, we have to run a close, potentially kick people off systems and run. So that's a huge step in the right direction there. But what I wanted to show you is under our accounting module, we have this concept of these ledgers, right? I mentioned this before. We have a royalty ledger and a royalty account ledger. What I was going to show you here is on our royalty ledger. And again, what you're going to see is a bunch of fictitious deals and dollars and all that. So nothing really to focus on there. But what we did is we designed the royalty ledger to give you an insight into your portfolio in 8 different tabs, right? So I'll just take you quickly through them. So you can look at your financials based on a contract level. You can look at it at a provision level, which is what Reagan mentioned earlier. Within contracts, you can have multiple provisions, and we're going to look at that shortly. You can look at it by your assets, right? What are your top earning songs? In this case, you can look at it by the contributors. Who are the people that are writing on these particular songs and how are they doing. You can then look at by a provider, right? So in this case, our top income is coming in from BMI, ASCAP, the MLC, et cetera. You can then also look at it by territory. So you can break this down globally to see which of your territories are generating the bulk of your revenue. All of these tabs, everything's in dollar descending order. But again, as I mentioned before, you have the ability to export this all out. And then over here, we're going to get to this filter panel, and you can filter everything down to a much more smaller population that you need to look at. And the last couple of tabs here, just by rights types, these are your high level income types, right? Your performance, mechanical, sync, et cetera. And then you can go further down, one level down into your usage types, which will then take things like, sync, for example, and bring it down into film sync, commercial sync, et cetera. So a lot of different ways that you can take this data and have it just jump right out at you through the ledgers. So with that,
I'm sorry, Gary. Perhaps a
yeah,
good call out quick might be that in RyteBox we explicitly track the net share. So profit reporting is a little bit easier here because we do track that explicitly.
yeah, and I know in some other systems there was a lot of manipulation that needed to go on to get those types of numbers. So RyteBox does that for you, which is great. So what I was going to show you here is these are all these different filters here, and I was going to pull up a contract for you just to take you in a little bit to again another one of our fictitious deals that we set up. So we have John Countryside. So I'm going to apply that as a filter. And as you can see here, it will then takes out everything else, right? And just at a contract level, I can see John Countryside's financials. So I can see what his gross revenue has been. In this case, it's since inception, but if I needed to, I could put date parameters on it as well if I just wanted to look at the last year. Sometimes, a lot of times, if you're analyzing a deal, right, people ask you for a 3-year history. You can do that through the filter panel. But just looking at this at a high level, I can see the John Countryside's gross revenue, royalty expense, and net publisher share. We also have this concept of tagging. So you can tag on a contract level multiple tags, right? So I've tagged this deal with a country tag. So because in case I wanted to run analytics for a particular genre in my portfolio, I could run it, for example, all of my deals that are tagged with a country tag, rock tag, whatever genres you want to keep track of. I've also got this other tag here. We'll get into this in a little later, just called like a rate escalation recoupment. So this is a deal that has a rate escalation upon recoupment, right? This is a pretty common thing nowadays, but sometimes hard to manage, right? Sometimes you're managing those things off system. So this can be done with the tagging as well. So then again, I took you through all the tabs, so I won't go through them all again, but I can see here just for John, I can see his top songs, for example, and see where the money is coming from. So that's kind of a high level on the royalty ledger. The next ledger, what I want to just show you real quick is our royalty account ledger. As I mentioned earlier, this is where it comes down to the actual payees, right? So again, if I wanted to look at a particular account, I can click in. Let me just look here. Let's see here. We'll go here. Let me try to find one that's got some good numbers on it. So again, fake data, real person, fake data. But this is where you can see on the ledger where it'll keep track of your opening balance, your activity, right? And then you have that ability to download statements in a PDF and a CSV format. So again, from a reporting perspective, you've got these different tools that will allow you to take all of this data that you're currently managing and parse it out into whatever it is that you need to see. The one last thing I'll show you is we have this concept in RyteBox called accounting groups. What this will do is it'll allow you to assign a particular client in a deal to an accounting group. Why is that important? So if you're doing administration, perhaps for multiple companies, right? We've got several clients that are doing it for different funds that have gone out and acquired assets. You may need to do financial reporting strictly for those funds, right? We have this ability where you would set up an accounting group for all of the assets and contracts and things that would fall under that fund. This way, at a quick filter, you can then run any sorts of financial reports, as I showed you, based on songs, contracts, et cetera, through the accounting group. So again, it's a great way to kind of like take your portfolio and to just break it up into smaller components, one to make it more manageable, but also to help you with reporting. All right. So hopefully that is a little insight into how we can help you on that front.
Shall we move on to my next challenge, Gary?
Give me another question, Reagan. Here we go.
I have a hard time staying on top of deal tracking. I track it all in a spreadsheet, and it's a lot of manual effort for renewals and terminations.
Right. Okay. So this is we've got a couple of tools to help you with that, right? A lot of times, you're trying to manage your deals. When are options coming up? When are extensions coming up? So we have a few different things that I can show you how we're going to show you. So starting with the contract dashboard, right? We touched on this briefly before. This is a great way to keep track of where your deals are trending. So for example, we've got this widget up here at the right. It's called Contracts Past the Target End Date. A lot of times deals are written in such a way where, you may have a 3-year deal, but within those 3 years, there's a minimum delivery commitment. And in many cases, that delivery commitment may not be satisfied by the end of that 3-year period. So this will keep track of things that have gone past their target end date, right? So if you set up a deal on January 1st of 26, 3-year deal that's meant to end at the end of 2028, this will flag that for you, right? If you're into, February of 2029, those deals that were meant to end at the end of 28 will show up here as past their target end date. So in this case, it's a great way to manage your deals and how far out they may have gone past their end dates. Upcoming expiring contracts just works the opposite way, right? This is what it's going to give you that information up front before you actually get to that target end date. And then we also have this concept of reminders where you can put in things to keep track. It's a great workflow tool. So I have a deal here that I wanted to show you guys that. Oh, sorry. Back to dashboard. Okay, so I have this guy named Rocky Roller, and he's a deal that was set up, and I'm going to take you into that deal in a second, but it's currently showing up as it's coming up on its expiration, right? So what I did here, going back to the dashboard for a quick second, I set myself up a reminder here that I need to do a deal review on Rocky Roller for an potential option pickup. I'm going to take into the agreement in a second, but I put the reminder as May 1st, which is basically 2 months before the deal is meant to end. So I'm going to take you into Rocky and just show you how this deal is looking, right? So this deal was set up. We've got an initial contract period and then an option period. So my target end date for this deal is June 30th of 2026, right? So I set up a reminder for myself on May 1st. So I said I want 2 months out to remind myself to take a look at this deal and whether or not we want to pick up this option or not. Option starts right after that. So if I go into that initial contract period, when I set this up, I'm going to take you through, like, this is what's called the provision. On here, I set up my commitment, and it was for 4 songs. And I'm going to say that he did complete that commitment, and I'll show you where. And that commitment was fulfilled on November 30th. So his deal is going to actually end on June 30th, and this will give me a chance to figure out, do I actually want to renew this deal or not? Okay. And I'll take you to the financials where we're going to do that analysis in 1 second. As you can see here, I can click up here on the catalog items, and this will show me the 4 songs that were added during the initial contract period. So now what I can do is go back to the royalty ledger that we were looking at earlier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into his account exclusively, his contract. And I'm going to apply my filter. Okay, so now I'm looking at the financials for this deal, right? So, okay, great. My gross revenue was almost $30,000. That looks pretty healthy. Royalty expense and my NPS. But what's nice about this is this gives you very quick insight into, um, at a 30,000 foot view, this deal might look like it's doing okay. Now what I can do is I can click on the assets that make that up. And I realize, okay, these are the 4 songs that he delivered. The bulk of the revenue is really attributable just to just one song, right? So that's maybe a little bit of a red flag for me. But now I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, let me dig in further because maybe that money is coming from various sources from around the world and the song was a massive hit and we might want to keep going with this guy. So now I might want to say, okay, let me look at the provider. Where did the money come from? Now I see, okay, we have $25,000 from Universal Pictures and Television. So that to me jumps out, big sync fee, right? Um, but now I say, okay, I want to go one level down. I'm going to take a look at the usage here, all the way on the right. And this is going to tell me that sure enough, there was a $25,000 fee for a film sync, right? This again might change my view of how I'm viewing this deal as to whether or not I might want to renew it. You might want to dig in further, talk to your creatives and figure out like, do you think this is just a one-off or is this a song that we think could get synced a lot in the future? These are all the types of pieces of data, right, that are going to go into your analysis of your deals as to whether or not, you want to renew or just let the deal end. So again, guys, this is all in the place of to prevent people from having to run extensive reports all the time just to have to slice and dice your data to figure out what's what. But again, if you wanted to do that, the export button here up at the top right will get you there. So you can do that as well if you wanted to really dig into the minutia to figure out like, more details on the songs and the usage types.
Thank you.
All right.
Rate escalations is another thing that requires a lot of manual tracking, and it's problematic because if I miss it, then I have to go and calculate all of the adjustments that need to be applied, and it's even more manual work.
Yeah, this is a challenging one. So back in the old days, right? I always had someone on my team that was responsible for keeping an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of all the deals that had escalations, and then running interim closes before we closed a quarter to figure out if any of these deals actually hit that threshold. So again, few different things that RyteBox can be really helpful with, and I'm going to just move over to this tab on the John Countryside deal. So when this deal was set up, one of the nice things with RyteBox is that you don't ever have to worry about, okay, so I have this deal where I've got escalating rates that may be happening 2, 3 years down the road. You can set up everything on day one through these things called rate sheets, right? So these are the rate sheets, and I'll go into those in a little more detail in a moment. But they're just very easy ways to input all of your potential rate situations on day one. So, for example, when we set up this deal for our John Countryside guy, we pretended as though he had a previous deal with Universal. So any monies that Universal would be paying through to us, we have it one set of rates. Then I've got these rate sheets for all the other income types, right? I've got one for everything except for performance and sync. Then I've got a rate sheet for performance and then a rate sheet for sync. What I've also been able to add is sync rates post recoupment, right? So this is going to be a deal where I'm going to need to monitor the recoupment status of this deal every time we run a close to see if I now need to escalate the rates. So how do we manage all that? So if you notice here, and I'll open up the rate sheets, our sync rates, our effective rate is 63% here. The post recoupment is 67.5%. Just going to show you real quick what that looks like. So you have the ability to add the date in which you would want that rate to kick in, right? At this point, we don't know because we're not sure when he's going to hit recoupment, right? If I knew there was a date certain for a rate escalation, I can put that date in again on day one when I set the agreement up. And then I know that the system knows when it hits that date, automatically sync income will run up against this rate set, not the old one. So you don't even have to touch it. But in this case, this is based on a variable, right? It's based on a recoupment situation. So I would leave the date as none. And then through some of the items, the tools we talked about before, whether it's tagging or the reminder diary, that's where I can keep track of all of my deals that are going to have to be looked at for recoupment. This concept is something interesting to RyteBox, and we have priority levels when we do royalty rates. What this basically does is allows you, I always use the example, if you've got $100 that comes in the door, who gets what and in what order, right? So in this case, we set this up as there's a 10% admin fee off the top. and then the royalty rate of 75%. But as you can see, it also will show you what your effective rate is. So in reality, of that $100, the writer is actually going to receive 67.50 because he's getting 75% of 90, right? And then here, priority three would be the balance of the shares. Whatever's left over will be my NPS. We also have this concept, as I mentioned, through the accounting groups, whereby you can see here under the payee royalty account column, obviously the royalties will go to John Countryside. That'll go to his royalty account, which will end up on the royalty account ledger and on his royalty statement. But the profit side of the equation will end up in these royalty in these accounting groups. So it's very possible that if you run your business in a way that you want to keep your admin fees separate from your NPS for whatever reason, maybe it's just for analytical purposes, you could actually put your admin fee into its own accounting group and then have your NPS flow to a different accounting group. So there's just a lot of flexibility there. And what I always say is one of the things I love is I always called it the back of the napkin calculation, right? Again, if I get that $100, who's getting what? This is all shown right here on the right-hand side. So I know that it's a great way to just double check your math to make sure that you've set this up properly and everybody's getting what they're meant to receive. So that's how we work on the rate sheet levels. And again, through the tagging, the reminders, and being able to set up a lot of these things on day one, it really cuts out a lot of the manual work and off-system things that a lot of people are doing.
Thank you. Licensing requests often require me to check either the physical contracts or another system. Can you talk to me about how you support that in RyteBox?
Sure thing. Yeah. So this is another one, right? So I don't know. I've worked in systems where you have no access to documents, right? So you're, sync licensing, mechanical licensing teams constantly pulling physical files to look for things about whether or not they can or cannot license something, right? So under this, the RyteBox, the contract module, and then under the provisions underneath them, as you can see the tabs up here, we have a tab for consents. And I'm going to just click on that so that you can see. What this does, guys, is this is just a great summary of all of the potential rights that can be licensed through a deal. I'm going to take you through just in a moment, but what it basically does, right? You've got the four kind of categories that things can fall into: pre-approved rights, restricted rights, reserved rights, and if the agreement is just silent, right? And from a business perspective, different companies might treat that differently, right? Sometimes people look at if things are silent, they'll assume it's pre-approved. Others will say if it's silent, then we're definitely going to go out for approval. So just depends. It's a business flow situation. But if I was to just say open up this blind here for licensing, I can see there's some subcategories, right? We've got grant rights, imaging likeness, et cetera. Sync is always a big one, right? So if I open up this blind further, what you can see then is we've populated, based on, again, this fictitious agreement, but we've populated the different fields for a lot of the different possible rights that can be licensed. So up here, for example, I'm looking at like advertisements. And in this particular instance, this agreement, the rights for advertisements is restricted. If you choose restricted, it will bring up this free text note box that you can fill in. And you can basically copy and paste information from the agreement or just free text away. In this case, we just said, publisher shall not license the composition for any use in a commercial without the prior written consent of the writer, right? So it just says you have to go out for approval. As you can see, a lot of other things are pre-approved, right? So blanket licenses, things like that, no need to do that. Down here, you can see, this is a standard language in a lot of agreements for hygiene products, firearms, tobacco, political ads. In this case, we said it's reserved, off the table. And then we just said, this agreement didn't specifically address karaoke. So we said, okay, we're going to leave that as silent. The great thing about this is for all of your licensing team, it's a great way for them to quickly reference what they can and cannot do. Another feature that's really nice that comes along with this is that on the agreement itself, we have this resources tab. And this is where you can actually load up documents, right? So you have the ability to load up the agreements, extensions, amendments, et cetera. again, in PDF format if you want, or links if you want to send them to a link to another system, so that you have that ability to access that information very quickly. You can put in notes on an asset level, on a song level. You could do the same thing. And you can also load up documents on a song level. So if you had some mechanical licenses, sync licenses, et cetera, that you wanted to have quick access to, you could load up those PDFs and attach it to the asset as well. So that's a great way. Hopefully that cuts down on a lot of the back and forth and people asking questions, because you can quickly reference that tab on the contract and see what you can and cannot do.
Thank you. Excuse me, apologies. Um, how about copyright terminations, Gary? How do you go about managing that to stay ahead of them?
Yeah, so this is something also that's kind of a great sort of tool within RyteBox, right? So for those of you that have catalogs that might be, have a nice healthy age to them, one of the things that everyone is dealing with is US copyright registrations, terminations, et cetera. Very difficult thing to manage. Obviously, I won't go into all of the law surrounding it, but one of the things that RyteBox has as a feature is the ability to keep track of songs that are either coming up for the termination window, or songs that are actually in the window, and keeping track of the filings that have been done. So, for example, just here, if I wanted to click on the widget here for the termination window, what it'll do is it'll bring up a list of assets. Um, and I'll just choose one, this, like, for example, I Love Nashville composition. What RyteBox allows you to do on a song level is not only obviously put in all the key data, the composers and things like that, but what we have down here is this enhanced metadata section. And it has obviously things that are more on the creative side, right? What was the origination of the work, the duration, the type of category it is, right? All of these things can add extra metadata for the song, which is really great information. But then down here, you've got the ability to put in things like the copyright termination dates, publication dates, communication dates, all of those things that drive the rules behind whether or not a song is ripe for termination. So, and then also keep track of its status. So again, previous companies that I had worked at, this was all an off-system thing that was really challenging to keep track of, constantly referencing agreements and things like that. So this is just another great feature to have everything sort of right up in front of you, and through the dashboard here will just allow you to keep track of these things, so that whoever is responsible for these things, you can get out ahead of them. One of the things that, from a business side that we tried to do at companies I worked at was try to find out, like, way in advance on those terminations, right? Get out in front of it 1 or 2 years before they even enter the window, so that you can reach out to those particular writers and their representatives and see if you can negotiate extensions before it becomes too late, right? Where the song's already in the window and then everybody's, fighting for those rights. So that is just another feature that we have for you.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. All right. So Reagan, I have a
Mhm.
question for you.
Okay.
So, changes in rights, right? This is something that is happening quite frequently. Things like, for example, you have an agreement that starts out as a co-pub deal and then over time, converts to administration deal. How is that handled? Because in other systems, we always had to do it on a song by song basis and update the IP screens and things, and it was a really time consuming and challenging uh, time.
Sure. So why don't we switch and I will screen share, and I will come back to that concept that I spoke about earlier of the contract-driven approach. Um, so I set up, maybe Gary told me about this question beforehand, so I set up an example contract called ARIA CoPub to admin. When we drill in here to the one provision I set up, and we'll drill into the rates that are set up, You can see here, this is provision level rates, excuse me, rights. And you can see here it's a co-pub. So there's a share between Aria Publishing and Acme Apricots. And,
And that's another
oh,
fictitious
let
company that
me,
we set up as our
sorry.
ASCAP company.
Yeah. And I will go into our catalog items that have been linked to this contract. So we have two songs here, one Falling in the Night and the other Velvet Rain. I'll just quickly open them up so we can see them and jump into the rights view. And you can see in the rights that they are both co-pubs. Let me get to the second one. Just so I can demonstrate how easy it is to update this. So I know this is only two songs, but imagine this were 10.
Or a
I would,
thousand.
or 1,000. I would come back to the rights on the contract here, and I will edit them. And in this case, we're switching to admin. So I'm going to remove this second chain here. And I will update the percentages. So it is 100% ownership for Aria Publishing and 100% collection by Acme Apricots. So I will save that. And once that's saved, I will just refresh the screen here, just so that you can see the update. And you can see now it is no longer a co-pub and it reflects the admin rights that we have defined on the contract.
Yeah, this really cuts down on a lot of the manual intervention that that I know a lot of people struggle with. Um, Through here as well, guys, I know there's a lot going on now with like writer share being purchased. Same thing here on the contract and provision level. You can also then reflect if writer share has been purchased, and that will cascade throughout the system as well. So
The one other thing I'll just mention, I saw someone wrote a comment about managing ISRCs and UPCs. So we do have a place. I haven't added anything here on this, but you can record or you can add every recording instance of Velvet Rain, for example, and there is the associated metadata there for UPCs and ISRCs and such. All right. Gary,
all right.
I have another one for you, which
Okay.
is when publishers operate in multiple territories, when a client calls and asks how many royalties do I have coming in, let's say this period, I know that can be tricky, right? You might have to call each of the locations and gather all of that information. Can you talk about how you do that using RyteBox?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'll let you keep screen sharing, Reagan, so we're not jumping back and forth. But so
Yeah.
one of the great things about RyteBox, everyone, is that when you process a statement, an inbound income statement, you only have to process it once. So what does that exactly mean? So in a lot of cases, right, you may have a network of offices around the world. And in previous companies that I worked at, we would have, for example, like a SASM statement would be processed in France in our French office. They would then generate an affiliate statement that would then, maybe 6 months later, 3 months later, get sent over to the US. Basically, we get reprocessed through the system again, and then eventually work its way through to the writer. RyteBox eliminates all that because it's a global platform. Wherever that SASM statement is processed, and it could be anywhere, right? That money will cascade all the way through to the writer in near time. So you don't have to have that delay. And you also cut out the entire double processing of works. The other thing that's great with RyteBox is that when you're processing a statement, so for example, you may have a song that has well, actually, yeah. So just getting back to the foreign, right? So just this real quick. This is how you can see things by territory, right? So again, if I processed a GAMA statement against a song for our Rocky Roller guy, and that just showed up all the way through, right? It made its way all the way from GAMA to the ledger pretty much instantaneously. So again, cuts out all of that delay and multiple processing, which can be incredibly frustrating. The other thing that's really awesome about, as Reagan was just showing you, sort of the rights screens. We have this notion that when you are posting money to a particular work, RyteBox knows exactly how to funnel that money. So, for example, if we had a song, and I think Reagan, maybe you can pull one up that is 50% written by ASCAP writer, 50% written by a BMI writer. RyteBox knows that if we receive an ASCAP statement, that money is only going to go to the ASCAP writer. Similarly for BMI, right? In other systems, you might have to, post it differently, sometimes have multiple songs in the system, things like that. All of that goes away because everything's driven by the rights. Similarly, if you had, let's say, a song where you control two writers and you control one writer for the world, but the other one strictly for Europe, the system's going to know if I get an inbound statement from the PRS, I'm going to split that money and allocate to both writers. However, if I receive money from Brazil or Australia or ASCAP, it's only going to funnel to the writer that I have for worldwide rights. So again, you do not have to worry. I'm going to say a word that people may know or not know, that evil word called subcodes. It just basically goes away. It is not something that you have to worry about because everything is driven by what you've set up at the contract level in terms of your rights, the territories, etc.
I think we covered it. I think
Yeah.
we could jump into questions.
I was just going to say, I'm quickly looking. Abby North just had a question about the CWR export importability. Yeah, so this is one of those items we didn't touch on the toolbar, right? I talked about our delivery module. That is exactly what that will do. You can export CWR files out. You can also import back in the acknowledgement files. What RyteBox will do is when you get the acknowledgements back, some of those acknowledgement files may include work IDs, they may include the ISWCs, they may include agreement numbers. All of that metadata that comes back into RyteBox will be stored either at the contract level, the asset level, whatever is the appropriate place. This is fantastic because when you later then receive inbound income statements and are processing your royalties, all of those third-party IDs are stored and will then lead to auto matching, right? So that you don't have to actually sit there and match all of your income to the right songs. So yeah, so it has all that ability to do that for catalog shipment, CWR, etc. Great question. Thanks, Abby.
I see some other questions too. There's a question about available APIs and integrations. Yes, we're open to those discussions and we are doing that for some customers. So feel free to reach out and we'll have follow-on conversation about that. There's also another question, Gary, I don't know the answer to. If you don't, I will follow up from Shore Music, which is for rate escalations, does the new rate take effect based on the date the income is received or the date of the royalty calc?
That's a great question.
It
Yeah,
is.
I believe it goes by the, you know what? I'm gonna pause on that one because I want to get confirmation on it as well. Yeah.
So Shore Music, if you can reach out to me with your contact information, I will I'll follow up on that one.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we're waiting for more questions to come in, I just want to extend a huge thank you to both of you, Reagan and Gary, for today's informative presentation. Really appreciate you sharing your time and your expertise with us. This has been great. And thank you folks so much for spending your afternoon with us. I really appreciate you being here for RyteBox's webinar. If you do have more questions for the RyteBox team, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box now, and we will get to them now.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you for having us. It was really great. If anybody's interested, please reach out. You can use the QR code and schedule a demo or learn more. And we're happy to hang around and answer any questions.
Yeah, thanks everybody. This was great. Thank you for joining. Sorry I have a little bit of a laryngitis, which is horrible timing, but thanks.
It looks like we are coming up on the end of questions here. Again, really appreciate y'all being here and representing RyteBox today. This was very informative. Thank you, folks, for being with us today, asking your questions, and getting to learn more about RyteBox and what they offer. Be sure to get in touch with the team through the contact info we've dropped in the chat. Be sure to check out this recording of this webinar on our website later today if you'd like to relive it or share it with a colleague. And we hope to see you at next week's webinar and also at Music Biz 2026 in Atlanta in just a few weeks. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. Appreciate you all joining.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye bye.